that's something new as well. No. And for those of you who have seen it, in the corner or whatever, we've always had this book, and we've been maintaining it since the very beginning. Each of our featured readers, or most of them anyway, have submitted a soul food poem of some kind, and it's becoming quite a thick book. And the very first readers, back on July 18, 2006, were Janine Hall Gailey, who's one of our featured readers tonight, and Annette Spalding Convey. It feels like just yesterday, but the years go by quickly. And so I'm very pleased to have Janine with us. She also, after this first reading, she joined me and Lana to help curate the reading for the first little while. So if you feel inclined to look some of the poems, please do. So what we'll do tonight is we'll have our two featured readers read, and we'll take a break. You can come check out books by our featured readers at that time. Get something to drink already. And then we'll have the open mic. Again, the open mic stuff is right down here, so please sign up if you'd like to. Now, the official part of our introduction is our two featured readers. I'll introduce them both, then Janine will read, and then our second reader, Martha Solano, will also read. And Janine will say a few words. Who's here for the first time? Quite a few of you. Great. Welcome. One thing we do here, if you signed up to read, please remind us that it's your first time here next year. One thing we do here is we ask one featured reader to choose their own reader. Something that makes the series a little different for others. That's one of the reasons why we asked the first reader to say something about the second reader. Here's the official bios. Janine Hall Gailey is the author of Becoming the Villainous, steel-toed books, and she returns to the floating world from Kissimmee Books. The latter book winning the Florida Publishers Association President's Award for Poetry, and I think there's some jingle that comes with some bling that comes with that. Her work has been featured on NPR's The Writer's Almanac, First Daily, and the year's best fantasy and horror. Her poems have appeared in such journals as the Iowa Review, the Seattle Review, and Prairie Schooner. She volunteers as an editorial consultant for Crab Creek Review and currently teaches at the MFA program at National University. And she writes really cool poems too. Martha Solano's 2011 poetry book, The Little Office of the Immaculate Conception, was named a noted book of 2011 by the Academy of American Poets, which is a big deal. It's a big deal. And was chosen by Campbell McGrath as the winner of the 2010 Saturnalia Books Poetry Prize. Previous books include What the Truth Tastes Like and Blue Positive here as well too. Her poems are forthcoming in North American Review, Prairie Schooner, and the Face to Meet the Faces, and Anthology of Contemporary Persona Poetry, and have previously appeared in Paris Review, Kenyon Review, and the Best American Poetry of 2009. And all three of those last ones are also big deals, among other publications. She teaches at Melvin College.
think I've ever won a medal before, so I'm very excited. It kind of feels like a show pony, you know. You can kind of anyway, a little show and tell. I'm gonna read. Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right. I'm gonna read just one poem from the first book, Becoming the Villainess, which is a collection all about fairy tales and comic book superheroines and mythology. So this is called Wonder Woman Dreams of the Amazon. I miss the tropes of paradise, green vines roped around wrists, jasmine coronets, the improbable misty clothing of my tribe. I dream of the land of my birth. They named me after a goddess. They wanted me to be a warrior for their king. I miss my mother, in my dreams, she wraps me tightly again and you to your bracelets and magic sometimes she changes into a doe and I see my father shooting her blood. Sometimes in these dreams it is me who shoots her. My daily transformation from prim kitten-bowed suit to bustier with red, white, and blue stars is less complicated. The invisible jet makes me steps. The animals of my spies and allies inexplicably sweep creatures from my hands. I capture Nazis and Martians with boomerang grace. When I turn, the music gets louder. The people around me burns quite hot. I lived out in Port Townsend for a year, and there's all these tsunami threat zones. So when a tsunami actually wiped out so much of coastal Japan, it brought an impact to me anyway. A letter from the suburbs of Seattle to the suburbs of Tokyo. I will send my voice out over the water, where the same cedars that litter my coast used to tower over yours. Once green, your cities have nibbled forests into bonsai. Our hinoki trees are shipped across the ocean for your sacred temples now. Postcards of volcanoes rise from a blue sky in the postcards from our homes. We share zones of tsunami, seasons of weeping cherry. I read about women's spirits haunting peony lanterns in the forest. Men follow them, fall in love with women long dead. In shallow graves rotted with tree roots, they still sing. And here, in pages hammered from your language into mine, sometimes with clumsy fists, I have listened to the bush warbler mourn her children. The foxwife's eyes in the darkness have warned me of the growling of dogs and fire. And when they disappear in silence, it is not really silence. Their echoes burn themselves into the stone, into the living screens of my childhood, fill my mouth with ghosts. Ghosts sit in my mouth and sing. Our grandfathers were at war. I grew up in the birthplace of bombs that poisoned children, burned holes into your sacred earth. Their poison is part of me. In the shelter of a shrine, a small girl holds an umbrella. She becomes a white bird. She whispers, and 1,000 cranes, 1,000 burning flowers pile up inside me, spell out onto these pages. Forgive me, ghosts, for my hard, unbeautiful hands, for my tripping tongue, as you demand a healed future, some untorn prayer. Sorry. I punctured it in on purpose by throwing my book to the ground for more dramatic effect. The next poem is a little lighter. I was thinking about all the advice we get when we first get married. I've been married for 18 years now, and this is all made up of the advice I got from older relatives and Redbook. The dirtiest thing in here is from Redbook. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but advice given to me before my wedding. Better to be the lover than the beloved. You'll have passion. Better to be the beloved, a sure thing, a lifetime of that. He is more beautiful, but you have more power, which is to say you are just like your brother. Lift your eyes and people do what you say. Who knows why? Men are like breakfast cereal. Just pick one. Fish in the sea, a dime a dozen, they are singing for you now. Keep your own bank account. Keep working. Give him a blowjob and he'll volunteer to take out the trash. Redbook. You are mine, says the beloved, and I am yours. Whither you go, I will go. Honey and milk are under her tongue. Cancer and Taurus, very compatible. You're the hard charger, he's the homemaker. Don't stop wearing lipstick. Don't put on any weight. Don't buy the dress too soon. If you go on the pill, your breasts will swell. One day, you might regret. You might do better. You could do worse. One man's as good as another. Wear my old pearls. Here's the blue, a handkerchief embroidered with tears. If you don't wear heels, you'll look short in the pictures. If you don't wear a veil, people will say you're not a virgin. Good luck, glad tidings, a teddy, a toaster. So long, farewell. The crazy things people say to you when you get married. Oh, well. One of the recurring characters I have in this second book is Anime Girl. She's kind of a conglomeration of characters from different anime that I've loved, including Hayao Miyazaki and Fooly Cooly and some other series. This one is called Anime Girl Delays Adulthood. She may or may not have burned down her school, but you know she likes to strike matches, throw them in a circle around her, pray to some unknown god of fire. Broken, you think. She must be in high school. Her skirt is too short. Her hair is still in pigtails. Feeding stray cats and playing video games under a bridge. You watch her rinse out her socks. Barefoot in the water, her lips pursed, she peruses her surroundings, surreptitiously sneaking shots of the ruined warehouse in the background with a camera, an eerie glow on the horizon. You wish her the best. You hope she leaves and never comes back. You hope for a kiss, a sandwich, a burned thumb. You were never right for her. She was always on the lookout for an easy out, the last train to nowhere, the final frame. So this next poem is also anime inspired. Have you guys ever seen Howl's Moving Castle? You might be familiar with some of the imagery from this. It's a Hayao Miyazaki film. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. In case you have that anime poetry. Yeah, no. Love story with Fire Demon and Tengu. Maybe in this version, you are a bird and I have become an old woman. Maybe you ate a falling star. It's hard to love someone in a castle. They always feel so distant. I will open a flower shop and learn to speak German, take to wearing ruffled dresses and straw hats. You'd like to pin me down, but you could tell my feet weren't touching the ground. I called your name over and over, but you couldn't hear me above the din of the bombers. It was like movies of wartime Japan. I looked up and there were planes bulging with smoke. The blue sky kept getting darker. Sometimes I thought, with your shadow. In the end, I have a dog in my arms and a scarecrow for a friend, but I never make it to Kansas. The field is wet and stormy. I kiss 3 men goodnight for their magic. The door to your childhood is opening for me. It allows me passage to a brick wall, my fists full of shiny black feathers, the shell of an egg, the howl of cold wind against a mountain. Don't worry, your heart is in good hands. Let me keep it a little longer. Its blue glow illuminates everything. So the next 3 poems are all about a recurring character called the foxwife, the kitsune, who is a main character in the book. And there's a little bit here I thought might be useful. This is from a translation by Nihi Fuyanu of an 8th century poem, The Man Who Married a Vixen. A vixen often visited this house and met a man, her husband. She remembered his words, so she stayed the night with him. Since then, this woman was named Kitsune, which meant come, love, sleep. The foxwife dreams. My husband says, can't trust foxes, their eyes like geodes. The wind brings red fur on my window, and the smell of them clings to my sheets. At the shrine of Inari, he rescued me. I see in his face he believed me, the foxtail beneath my bedclothes betraying. He swears he didn't know I was Kitsune, though my sharp glances were everywhere, jumping when the dogs bayed. The brown silk robes of my youth, the smell of smashed leaves underfoot wherever I walked, the curl beneath the bed sheets. Foxfire, fox flare, fox fur, our noses were flames in the forest. The light of torn paper lanterns is never true, the moonlight uneven. He always praised my face, the narrow nose, high cheekbones, close-set eyes, my hair red even when I brushed it darker. Come sleep with me, he asked, even after. Stay with me. Far away, a fox barking at good fortune. Faithful, faithful, a vixen snaps at his ankles, the taste of rust in the mouths of our charmed children. So in my first book, I wrote almost all in women's voices. And in the second book, I tried to explore writing in a men's voice a little bit. So these next 2 poems are from the foxwife's husband's perspective. It was a little harder to write, but hopefully they worked out. He wonders what exactly he rescued. His hands are full of brambles, and the woman in that tower a bit more feral than anticipated. It turned out she had a bone collection and a habit of turning princes into toads. With her hair cut short, her eyes and cheekbones look so sharp she reminds him of some forest creature gone astray. He makes dinner for the 2 of them, gently snapping asparagus, cutting the fascia away from a chicken breast with a sigh. A backfire, a black spire, a fear arc, a fey bicker, a creature with a beautiful song and sharp claws. Nothing the way he'd pictured it. The husband tries to write to the disappearing wife. I could have kept you in the palm of my hand, but you weren't ready. I know I have lost your body, dissolved into particles, swirling like birdsong. I should have known when I started sweeping twigs and bits of fur and feather off our floors, when our baby liked nothing better than eating beetles. Our bargain was never as strong as straw, as autumn's last light easily shattered. Why is it I want to carve you into my palm, from pain into memory, that I sit up night after night, recreating first the moon and moth, the white shrine, your eyes too bright to be human. The songs I write start with your hair, but end with your heart. No poetry seems right without your crooked smile, without the scrape of your sharp teeth against my lips. There is no word for kiss. So this is the last poem from the book, and then I'll read 2 new poems about Fukushima that I've been writing. This is called Autobiography. No, last time you read me wrong. I'm not the main character. I'm the photographer, the one with her feet in the river. I'm the frame of reference, not the delicate willow branch, not fragile and crumpled as a peony. You mistook me for the love interest in a bunny suit, or read me as the robot, but I am neither. Here, my abode is stump, moss. I am stronger. The wind can't kill me now. I leave town and you won't hear from me again. Stop imagining I was waiting for your permission. I started this before you even knew me. It's not what you think. The story doesn't end. One more time with the dust off the butterfly wing leads to spring. After she vanishes, after you've already written her off, she is reborn, each time less likely to know the tongues of insects, more likely to smell blood. This time, she'll be tumbling through a metal tube wearing a platinum armor, armed with a crossbow, hair and a Joan of Arc bob framing the scene. Don't be surprised. The woman reappears, and this time, she will be a stranger to you. This time, she will keep more to herself. So that's the end of From She Returns to the Floating World. And so this next poem, I forgot to bring with me, but I'm going to read off of this crazy reader. Thank goodness for technology. It's called Cesium Burns Blue, and cesium is one of the big contaminants from Fukushima. And it was also, I grew up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and they did experiments with this stuff in my backyard, basically. They just burned it to see what would happen. So it's here, a little info about it is cesium can be absorbed through the skin. It ignites in water. It does all these very strange things. Cesium burns blue. Copper burns green. Sodium yellow. Strontium red. Watch the flaming lights that blaze across your skies, America. There are burning satellites even now being swallowed by your horizon. The detritus of space programs long defunct. The hollowed masterpieces of dead scientists. Someone is lying on a grassy hill, counting shooting stars, wondering what happens when they hit the ground. In my backyard, they lit cesium to measure the glow. Hold it in your hand, foxfire, wormwood, glowworm. Cesium lights the rain, absorbed in the skin, unstable, unstable, dancing away, ticking away in bones, fingernails, brain. Sick, burns through, burns blue. So this is thank you. Kind of a depressing poem to end on. So this last poem is called A Morning of Sunflowers for Fukushima. And one of the things they're doing to try to get rid of the cesium in the earth around Fukushima is to grow sunflowers. So this is all from a news story, some of these quotes. So, A Morning of Sunflowers for Fukushima. This is also the soul food poem. So, 200,000 sunflowers drink the cesium from the grounds of the temple where they burn the names of the dead. This invisible snow, says the temple's monk, brings along winter. A village woman mourns the loss of her blueberries. In Chernobyl, they grew amaranthus, field mustard, sunflowers. But how to dispose of poison flowers in spring? We build lanterns. We plant seeds. We set things alight. Thank you very much. I'll try not to throw anything else on the ground as I introduce Martha Solano. She is a very dear friend of mine, and as I said, our first books came out together from the same publisher in the same year, and now I'm celebrating her second book as well, which is fantastic. I hope she reads one of her science poems tonight. Little science stuff there. But welcome, Martha Solano.
Okay, can you hear me okay? All right, let me see what time it is. Okay, so first, thank you, Michael, for lovingly curating this series for, 6 years already, and to Janine for making sure I got to read with her. That was very kind of you, and everybody else for coming tonight. I'm going to read a couple poems from my second book, Blue Positive. The first book is really hard to find. Maybe you can find it on Amazon, but I don't even have a copy right now. It's a long story, but I hope someone has a copy of it because I don't. So Janine, in hearing Janine read, I started thinking about how I didn't do a lot of persona, and I think part of it was hearing more and more of your poems, and I'm doing more now. We got in this anthology together, Face to Meet the Faces. can't remember the whole long version. Contemporary poets write about persona. Anyway, poems not in the actual voice of the poet. I mean, you're never really writing in your own voice, right? It's always heightened, and you're doing stuff that's not exactly autobiographical, but you really consciously go out and write in someone else's voice, whether it's Mona Lisa or Planet Earth, as I have one. So this was in Blue Positive, but it's called If You Want a Girl to Grow Up Gentle, Lace Her Tight. And it's actually derived from a corset ad from the, say, late 19th century, early 20th century. So literally, you know, what girls had to wear. And actually, when I was at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia last year, I saw the ribs of a woman who had worn a corset all her life, and they actually move. It's bizarre. So I saw that after I wrote this poem, but it's written, I made a shape too. I don't do that very often, so. Okay, a lot of introduction for a short poem. Bound this way, I am anything but boundless. I'm so bound, I'm bound to feel, and I'm feeling out of bounds. But I'm a believer in being bound for better things. Wide, wide highway bound, 6 or 8 or 16 lanes, a wide berth for a wide-bodied plane. Tarmac, runway, blue landing lights marking the boundary between gentle and gruff, between docile and tough. The calm, where the windy stubble, the wild desert, prickly, begins. They want my waist thin as a stalk of bamboo, the wind whispers through. Want it narrow, like the narrowest spot in a wide riverbed. Diked, jettied, piered, contained, end to spilling, fingers reaching planes. They want it channeled, dredged, want the water over there to stay there. It is lacy, this tightening. It is the opposite, the very opposite of unraveling. It is quite the opposite of 26-foot swells, of cresting and lapping. You don't know where you're going to breathe. There's also no punctuation. I did that for a while, and I'm done with that. But that was a phase. Like, when I read this book, like, who wrote these poems? They're very different than what I do now. But you don't get a chance to breathe. And I'm just going to read one other. This is my daughter when she was about, oh gosh, maybe 5 months old, I think, when the book got accepted. So I had a lot going on when this was being, going through the publication stages. But this was written about my son, who's now 11. And when I got pregnant and I started to feel my first baby kicking, I thought, well, no one's ever written about that. And I kind of wanted a poem out there for everybody else, any other folks out there who just need to know what it's going to feel like. It's called Getting Kicked by a Fetus. Like right before you reach your floor, just before the door of an elevator opens. Like the almost imperceptible springs you waded through in Iroquois Lake, carbonation, twitch. Sometimes high and jabby near the ribs, sometimes low and fizzy like a pie releasing steam, like beans on the stovetop, slow simmer, like the shimmer of incoming tide, hot, soft sand meeting waves, slosh bringing sand crabs that wriggle invisibly in. And sometimes a school of herring pushing through surf, or a single herring caught from a pier like a sliver of moon rising in the west. Sometimes a tadpole stuck in a pond growing smaller and smaller, a puddle of mud, squirmy like worms, now you're left, now you're right. Sometimes neon flickering, like that Texaco sign near Riddle, Oregon. From a distance, it read taco, but up close, the faintest glow, an occasional E or X, like an ember reuniting. Like seeing your heartbeat through the thinnest part of your foot, sunken well between ankle and heel, reminder of a world beneath your skin, world of which you know little, and the pond growing smaller and smaller. Soon the rolling waves like the ones you dove into at Bradley Beach, at Barnegat, growing less frequent, your giant ocean drying up, your little swimmer sinking, giving way to the waves of his birth. Okay, so thank you. So I'm going to move on to my newest little office of the Immaculate Conception. So I have a few notes here. We're in a mall, right? We're essentially in a mall. It's an oasis sort of away from the mall. But so I thought of reading this, starting with this poem called Where's Our Dignity? She's hanging out in malls. She's up there swinging with the climate controls, with the dusty, greasy, lingering from the 60s, give me a hot dog and a Pepsi exhaust. Swooning, pre-baguette, pre-lime-infused Evian. She's gotten wind of vents that gulp down noise, but not her cracking gum. Invisibly lurks through grandiose bathrooms, innocent as freesia, as faucets sensing the heat of hands. Promising connectivity gateways, she's bought a laptop but hasn't logged on. Released like jello from an aluminum mold, she reminds us of the 54 billion galaxies, then retreats to the slot in our broken since 1999 VCR. In the unlikely event of a water landing, she's our stalwart flotation device. When we lean in, eternity, do you like it? When we peel yet another $100 bill from our money clip, not for the homeless, AIDS, cystic fibrosis, the American Red Cross, she shakes a bony finger, stretch Lycra, stretch limo, it's all the same in the end. Thank you. Okay, well, Janine said read some science. She blinded me. Okay. I'll give you some aliens. What I will tell the aliens. I will tell them about our clapping, our odometers, and our skillets. I will take them to a place of fierce lightning, to a place of tombstones and of gridlock, and I will tell them of geckos, of ecstatic moments, all about our tchotchkes, our temples, our granite-countered kitchens. Give me an alien, and I will give it a story of unfathomable odds, of erections and looting. Show me an alien, and I will show it the sorrows of the centuries, all wrapped up in a kerchief, all wrapped up in a grandmother's black wool coat. Bring me an alien right now, and I will show it the misery of stilettos, of pounding out tortillas and heroes. Please send me an alien, and I will give it a bloody nose, and then I will show it a great humanitarian gesture. 10,000 tents when 600,000 are needed. Let me talk to these aliens about shoe shiners and rapture, of holidays and faxes. Let me pray with the aliens for the ice to stop melting, for the growths to stop growing, for a gleam to remain on our lips long after the last greasy French fry is gone. That actually also seems like a good mall poem, doesn't it? Didn't intend. Okay. Well, Janine was talking about a lot of things, but she's talking about tsunami. So when I was down in Newport, Oregon, staying on the coast, I'd been working with my students about found poems, and I said, just find a sign or something, like a physical sign, not like a sign, and just that'll be a poem, something that said, and you can just, put that in a book, and you'll have a whole book of these, and you'll be famous. I think Annie Diller did that. Anyway, so I was going to do that, and instead I took stuff from the sign and I made it into a poem. But this was long before Fukushima. And then so I didn't want to read it for a while, but now I feel like maybe I can read it again. More waves may follow. I told her, your hair has lovely waves. So she waved like the white-gloved Miss Merry Christmas on the Christmas tree float. He said, my egg beater runned out of gas because it was his mower, the same one his father used to keep the house from burning down. We do not anticipate this, but if tables and chairs begin to fall over, do not expect another warning. When he heard me say prosciutto, he thought prosciutto. So the tongs, a new kind of power, a weapon all his own. Begin to fall over, our only warning. There was no other. I wish I could die, he'd said. So now he had his chance. Now I was surely listening. And I'd said nothing negative. We were talking about subtraction, how you can't take 4 away from 2. But this has nothing to do with positive. They were expecting me to save them, and that was a little jarring, especially when I looked up at 3rd Street, knew it was floating with bodies. Do not pack your belongings. Don't recount your longings. Every wrong thing you did had a reason. She's running from me, won't let me comb her hair. He wants to lie down in the road, let the rushing run him over. We are the waves. We are the numbers. We are no one's watching over us, and this is just what happens. We are the sinking, yet all the while, we can go to another world. All we need to do is doggy paddle. Our insurance, her hair ties, his haiku with the springing deer, all in a churn. Our stay at the hotel over. Our only warning, the falling. So the sign actually said, this might be your only warning. And that was the line that just resonated. Okay, so I am going to be in a Polish-American anthology. I'm so excited because most of the time my Italian ancestry is very evident in my poems. But this poem, it's about my mom, kind of. They chose for this cool little, I get to be half Polish. Okay, I am. So, how to sew. You need a mouthful of pins. You need a simplicity pattern. The onion skin sheets explaining with dotted lines with numbers and arrows, palazzo pants, a hooded dress. The best part is the store owner, her rhinestone pince-nez glasses, how she flips and flips your chosen bolt, lavender fabric spilling out like a colossal ribbon candy. The best part is the sound of scissors slicing through a polycotton blend. You will need to learn about edges, about gathers. Meanwhile, the whole contraption disguised to look like a table. Meanwhile, lifting the lid, reaching in for the smooth black cat needle for a mouth. Meanwhile, threading the bobbin, the squeaking of the foot pedal. You will discover there is satisfaction in edge stitching and stitch ripping. You will wear the flawed apron, but only you will know the flaw. You will learn to tie off knots. So the prompt for this, I often write using exercise prompts, was write about something you absolutely know nothing about and cannot do. It kind of sets up a challenge because, you can write well about what you know how to do, but that allows for things to happen that maybe wouldn't have happened if you knew too much, right? And also, I'm going to read 2 more. Does that sound about right? This, Janine, I have to do this. It's kind of like confession time. So I don't know if I told you this, but when I read your advice before you get married poem in Rattle, I stole the concept for what people have told me before I had babies. And I sent it to Rattle, and he said, we love this, but it's too much like Janine's poem. So I learned a lesson, like if you steal, don't send it to that editor, okay? That's not a good idea. They loved your poem, but they were like, done that. So it's called What the Old Wives Told Me. You'll recognize the structure. Nauseous, must be a boy. Retching, girl, girl, girl. Carrying high, that's ambition. your very own fetal valedictorian. Carrying low, oh whoa, he won't stop saying nuclear pig till he's 27. The kicker? She's a cartographer, sketching continents more remote than Atlantis. Won't flip over? He'll teach skydiving. Now it's time to mix your urine with Drano. Good news, bad news. Blue could be either, both. Did you say a circular motion? Fat and acne all over? This is the body's way of saying, enough already with the turbulent trampolining, the rampageous gymnastics. Honey, why you even asking? Either one will dig up your seedlings, eat through to your tarnished heart. Either won't stop saying, I want the cat pillow, long after you've given it back. Here's the baby Heimlich maneuver. Here's a little mirror for the dash. You'll get the hang of it, the bouncing and the hushing they always fall for, the baby and the bathwater. And I'm going to finish with the poem that's going into the book, the big book. And it's called It's All Gravy. Okay, it's all gravy. A gravy with little brown specks. A gravy from the juices in a pan. The pan you could have dumped in the sink, now a carnival of flavor, waiting to be scraped, loosened with splashes of milk, of water, of wine. Let it cook, let it thicken, let it be spooned or poured over bird, over bovine, over swine. The gravy of the cosmos bubbling beside the resting, now lifted to the table. Gravy like an ongoing conversation, Uncle Benny's pork pie hat, a child's peculiar way of saying emergency. Seamlessly, with sides of potato, of carrot, of corn, seamlessly, while each door handle sings its own song. While giant cicadas ricochet off cycads and jellyfish sting. A gravy like the ether they swore the planets swam through, luminiferous, millions of times less dense than air, ubiquitous, impossible to define. A gravy like the god Newton paid respect to when he argued that to keep it all in balance, to keep it from collapsing, to keep all the stars and planets from colliding, sometimes he had to intervene. A benevolent meddling like the hand that stirs and stirs as the liquid steams, obvious and simple, everything and nothing. My gravy, your gravy, our gravy, the cosmological constants, glutinous gravy, gravy of doulas, of dictionaries, and of gold. The hand stirs, the liquid steams, and we heap the groaning platter with glistening. The celestial chef looking on as we lift our plates, lick them like a cat come back from a heavenly spin, because there is oxygen in our blood, because there is calcium in our bones, because all of us were cooked in the gleaming Viking range of the stars. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martha and Janine. I have a new idea for a poetry reading. Sort of like the way your two poems run off each other.
Yeah.
Let's say you wrote another poem that somebody else stole from, and then you could all read in a long sequence. Different poems. It would be an interesting thing to have that sort of interplay. Again, thank you very much. We'll take a break now. If you haven't signed up for the open mic, the sign-up sheet is right here. Somebody has my blue pen, by the way. Hope it comes back. And we'll get started in about 10 or 15 minutes. So buy something. Thank you. Nantucket. Nantucket. Flowers through the window, lavender and yellow, changed by white curtains. Smell of cleanliness, sunshine of late afternoon. On the glass tray, a glass pitcher, the tumbler turned down, by which a key is lying, and the immaculate white bed. That's Mr. Williams, Dr. Williams, pardon me. Our first reader in our open mic. I forgot. The question for tonight's reading is, who is your favorite comic book hero? Thanks to Janine for suggesting this most excellent and bodacious question. Who is your favorite comic book hero? And our first reader wrote Superman, and that is Justin Belote. Please welcome Justin. First time here, right? First time.
Cool. What's up, guys? All right, I'm going to read two poems tonight. One is called, I guess the first one I'll do is called Offerings. The people watching agreed the fire gave all of itself to the building. The owners stood in the grass, barefoot and holding pillows. Later, they picked through the rubble, dusted off old empty frames, and looked for lost jewels. When they couldn't find the jewels, they filled their pockets with ash and turned away. And the man who paid for food with small stones after he had picked the fountains clean is now selling his teeth for water by the chapel, always giving a part of himself away. In that same chapel, I once watched flies at a wedding land on a sleeping grandfather and rest, quite sure he could tell me why things disappear, tell me why when his wife left, he only pulled back the blue bedroom curtains and watched and did nothing. Once, while driving in the Midwest, I wished to be like the man who had drowned summers ago behind my house, resisting nothing. So when I saw a dirt road, I knew I had to take it and follow it to its end. I decided if it led to a river, I would toss stones and watch the ripples float downstream until they vanished. But if it led to a lake, I would undress and throw all of myself into it. Even now, as I write this, I don't understand. I have already filled the upstairs bathtub with water and our photographs and watched closely as the ink lifted off the paper like smoke. I have emptied my pockets and, finding nothing useful, closed the curtains so that when this page is full and I write on the desk, then on the walls, and empty myself entirely to the point where not even death could take something from me, my hands will turn almost unnoticed into flames.
Is the next one really short? Because I need to limit it to about 3 minutes.
Yeah, this one's okay, short. The moon in every angle it's viewed from. In the winter, the ocean is visible from here through the bare branches of elms, but now it is 1,000 leaves that sound like waves and propagate wind with their rustling. When winter comes again, snow and snow melt, and the distant pattern of ripple and white flecking blue as it is seen through your breath before it vanishes in the air. This world returns to silence. In the morning, the light on the sill and shoulder of your lover, the dust hanging in it, it will collect on whatever it can find. I would like to say now the body returns to that dust, but the soul does not. It goes on into another pattern and becomes that pattern while it lasts. Outside, a bell is tolling to who knows what time. This is the moon in every angle it's viewed from. The cathedral window with all the colors it takes to interpret God, the stone wall with the weeds growing through it, the house we used to fuck in. Listen, an owl call, and after the call, the echo, and then silence. It is perfect.
Up
next to stand under the very bright lights, April Partita, whose favorite comic book hero is Batman.
Mine's on my iPhone, too. All right. Patience. They say patience is a virtue, but I say patience kills. Asking someone to wait for you is like asking that person to give you their heart, only to give it back when you're ready to use it. The feeling of waiting for someone can only be described as a journey of commitment. This journey clouds my mind with confusion. I try and feel hope, but with hope comes contusions. At what point while waiting are you considered weak? Let's go through my journey, a small little peek. If you want something bad enough, you'll stake through the pain in hopes that your dignity will overcome shame. My mind is so angry, upset, and confused. My heart remains empty, abused and misused. Waking up every morning, my stomach in knots. Hoping today is different, unfortunately it's not. Every day that I am forced to wait, I think of you and contemplate. I contemplate my happiness, I contemplate the hate. I contemplate the words you said. Were they real or were they fake? I question what is good for me. I question all my faith. I ask myself if it's even worth it. Self-reflection every day. What happens when you're stuck? Caught in a place where sleep and poisons are your only remedies. Tormented by my wants and broken by my patience, I struggle to conquer these feelings of frustration. I'm trapped inside two places at once, and the ability to gain serenity is almost impossible. Each place has its own individual emotions, making it harder to choose both paths that are open. Looking deeper into these places, I realize I'm deserted, screaming inside, but no one can hear me, trying to breathe through the helpless hope in me. From the moment the early sun rises till the time where the night kills the lightness, I think. My coping states of isolation bring me nothing but ache. It leaves my mind to ponder the agonized memories I cannot escape. Every minute that's spared fills my body with sadness. My strength has been broken. You've only just grasped it. These places of darkness and shameful neglect abide right inside me. It's my head and my chest. Two parts of my body, so different indeed. My heart and my mind both suffer equally. Fighting for my strength back, I fail constantly, knowing that I'll turn to drugs to kill the constant suffering. Why can't I forget you? I try my hardest every day. I try to find a different person. Unfortunately, none are the same. Disgust sits inside me as I think of my weakness. Never have I felt so hopeless, sitting here revealing my secrets. You bring out a different side of me that no one will ever know. I hate the fact that you bring out the nice in me, shamefully described as a positive glow. It makes me wish I never met you, only to stop the pain. I try and find happiness without you. I fail miserably every day. I just want to feel like myself again. I pray to God he shows me the way. I'm tired of these restless nights that overtake me day by day. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm choosing to wait. If there's any speck of truthfulness, you'll keep your words and shatter the pain. I told you to follow your heart. You said your heart chooses me. I'm choosing to wait because you asked me to, even though I'm scared, you see. I'm choosing to wait because I want to, mainly because I care. I'm choosing to wait for many reasons, only because second chances are beautifully rare.
Thank you for reading. I think we've all been there. 6 years ago, I don't think we had people reading from phones. That's one change we've had in the last few years. Our next reader says, I don't read comic books. And that is Mary Crane.
This is called Dad's Pajamas. After his midlife divorce and severance from my mother's misery, the small, mean penury of my childhood, and true poverty of a Depression-era Irish ghetto, my father developed a shopping habit. His spontaneous standby transcontinental flights were equal parts affection for me, his grandkids, and Nordstrom's Rack. His castle was a tidy, small old house remodeled for a single man, bereft of kitchen cupboards, well stocked with barely used high-end Calphalon cookware, a single shower stall with jungle print guest towels, and a drawer of pilfered hotel soaps. The final month, with tumors gaining on his brain, Annie and I shared the guest bed surrounded by racks of shoe trees in the closet from his early Goodwill days. At least, until we rotated in and out of the recliner in his room, each sleeping every other night when he didn't want to be alone, each morning filled with exclamation, wonder, and surprise upon waking he was not yet dead. Every few days he selected another bow tie, coat, and shirt for burial, each new clash worse than what had come before, his hallmark bad flamboyance from the happenstance of colorblindness. Dad raced against his fading faculties to remember where he'd stashed the money he was keeping out of probate. Euros were in the pocket of an ugly orange jacket, but we fished behind his dresser drawers through stacks of shirts and plastic packages for cash. But instead, we found the new pajama stash. As much glee from his 3 daughters as ours had ever shown, dressing up like princesses, we tore the plastic open and paraded with them on. Mine a dark blue cotton tartan flannel plaid, proper buttons with a collar. Annie dapper in red pinstripe touched with gray. We saved for Joe the rainbow-colored extra-large seersucker shorts, which he later made the error to put on for a woman who lacked a sense of humor and a heart. Dad marveled at the usefulness of daughters while lamenting well his sons, though Judy the philosopher would only crush the pills. No doubt he said such ill of us while with my brothers. We 3 climbed up on his bed in warm pajamas full of mirth, his girls beneath his comforter, he tucked into another bowl of oatmeal, reclining in his chair. We all settled down to watch his favorite evening legal show, To Catch a Pervert. It was our finest hour in our finest final month that turned into a minute, a final single breath, and finite death.
Quick reminder, we're looking for about 3 minutes worth of poems up here since we have a bunch of folks tonight, which is wonderful. Up next, the fan of Captain Marvel, Herb McLeese.
It's been a while since I've read those comics when I could in the drugstore, sitting, quietly. And anyway, I came across some of you may have heard this, but anyway, I came across a poem written by my mother and a poem written by my father, my stepfather, and they wrote it upon separation while he was going to Asia for a couple of years, and they knew that they wouldn't be able to see each other until they got back. And what I did was I took his poem and her poem and intercut them without leaving out a word, taking exactly the same order as if they were in face-to-face dialogue, because they weren't when they wrote their poems. They were written about 3 days apart. Okay, I'm going to ask Janine has offered to join me in this. If you could, I'm sorry, I'm a creature of habit.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Right, okay. I'll start. I call this after parting. I sit alone in a drafty, cold, cavernous gloom, thinking of what has been and what shall be again.
As in a vivid dream, I move and see and feel and hear, yet I am mute of the dream in the dream, but seem removed and powerless to speak, to say, to call, to ask.
My arms are empty and desolate.
As in a waking dream, I hear, perceive, and know you, there at my very fingers' tips, around my throat, within my ken, yet words aborning die before these eager lips can part. They will not come.
Courage I need, and courage there is, as radiant vistas I behold with ever brighting ones outline through the haze of the future.
I know, I feel, I thrill, yet dumb I stand. Towards you and up at you I seek and long and crave and ache to sing aloud. To my cramped spirit, how vast you are. To my drifting hull, how snug a haven. To my pent heart, how rare you are. How calm, how warm, how steel, how elder down your touch, your gaze, your voice, your very self.
You have returned to your native bourne, the limitless skies with their eternal majesty.
By what mad power leave you then this dream, this wakeful sleep, this conscious trance? By what fey force have you bade me wait until you come again? You who have yet to hear the myriad ways, you are for me the answer, guide and goal, height, the deep, the breadth, the fine, the sterling, the high road.
But I rejoice in your silent voice, farewell, farewell, as you speed aloft.
For me, the long inured, unsought, unchallenged, unassailed, as well immured within a moated citadel, fades now the dream. My silence throttles me, leaps in my throat. Still here I stand mute, voiceless, dumb, and no sound comes.
The year's first snow, which blankets all things and is God's own promise.
You go. I rouse to stay you, to lay hold on you, to bind you near, to beg you heed, to hear my plea.
That precious shoots will be protected and fed through the winter of their apartness.
I see you go, depart, leave, remove. I look once more. You are not here, who so late within my very frame were in my sphere.
My tears no longer flow.
Alone I stand, silent, unexpressed, mum.
Thank you. That was a treat. I think Batman is winning tonight. Our next reader likes Batman, and that is Joe G. And is that your first time here?
Yeah.
Welcome, Joe.
Batman's a relatively obvious choice for me. As I sit with hand, I haven't named this poem either, but I do love poetry events, and I'm really glad that I found this because this is awesome. As I sit with hands gripped on this paper's margin, I often wonder about people's push to stardom. I don't think anyone likes starving, so I resolved to take my great blank slate and start carving. No one else is going to answer my calling. I got to pick up the phone because my voicemail's full and my landline's disconnected. Lack of funds on this run, but I know my journey's respected, so I feel somewhat protected. I'm not another statistic becoming a critic because I couldn't get it. I'm a menace. My life, my liberty, and my pursuit of happiness. Happiness can be running around, paying bills, creating kids, but what did I miss? I thought the road to my dreams ends at the door of prosperity. If you think you have ambition, you probably don't compare to me. So why is it I find myself itching, pushing my vision, waiting for my next chance, steady missing this one, overlooking current income because I see the journey ending just over the horizon? Well, I crossed the horizon, and I feel like those dreams are hiding. My hope is sinking like the Titanic or the Poseidon. I got to ride on with no one to rely on. Got no one to confide in except for college-ruled paper and a paper-mate pen. I tell myself sacrifice creates all great men. I got the patience of Job, but how much of this shit can I take in? I put everything I got in this. Correct me if I was mistaken. Will there be a better chapter in my fate, helping others in their struggles because I can relate? Or am I destined to be a lost scholar, defeated in life but praised as a martyr? Nah, I go down as a self-starter. Where I'm from, we don't quit, we push harder. You got it in you. You'll find a venue to pay you. You'll find radio to play you, cable channels to display you. Gotta be patient because you're creating the next best thing on the worldwide menu. I just reread the first 3 bars of this like, why was I tripping? I gotta go right now and hit the kitchen on my mission.
That was awesome. Please come back. We're here every month. Up next, we have Adam, who has no favorite comic book hero. It's very sad. Perhaps he can enlighten us. Pardon?
Powdered Toast Man.
Powdered Toast Man. Here we are, Adam.
Yeah. Well. So this is about, I believe that faith and self-awareness are the 2 most important things, or at least to me. And this poem is called What It Is. It is what it is, and it is what it isn't. It is just a memory of what it once was. And if it is, just let it be. For what it is in what we see. If it is, just let it be. Just let it be. You and I are looking for the truth, when you and I are the living proof that what it is beyond this. From Jesus, Shiva, Buddha to Jah, Jehovah, Moses, Mohammed, Allah, Brahma, Ra, Pachamama, not a lotta, not a thought, we are not to not a God. We all exist within awareness. Awareness has always been. It is I, it is you, it is me, it is us, it is them, it is we. It is now, it is then, it is what lets us see, it is what lets us be. The desire to be free is what makes this cage that we see. And to be is to be free. So please just let us be. Thank you.
Our next reader is Jennifer, who loves Wonder Woman.
First time. Well, not the first time with this poem. This is actually an old poem, but it's the first time that I've been in front of an audience in a really long time, 10 years. So figured I'd revisit the past. Okay. It's called Death Walks the Land. I am transfixed by her terror, compelled by her beauty, the seductive sway of her hips as she crushes bones beneath her feet, the starlight shining from her eyes as she surveys her bounty, the melodic laugh escaping her full lips as she orgasms with power. She is destruction. Despair so pure it wrenches my heart in its grasp, and I cannot avert my gaze from her death mask. The ever-changing shadows that dance across her sculpted features. She sees me watching, and I am undone. A smile carves its way onto, sorry, lost my part there. A smile carves its way into her face, a calculated gesture that sucks the life from my bones until the only blood left is the stickiness splattered over my face and ripe in my hands. I want to turn away and retch, expel that foulness that's burned within me, but I am riveted by her stare. She speaks to me, a crystalline voice that shatters my eardrum. Its silky tone travels the length of my spine, leaving chaos and goose flesh in its wake. Sister, she says, watch. Watch and remember. Then she turns from me, stoops to feed, consuming life, flesh, entrails, and returning it to the mother. I hear the hungry smacking of her ravenous mouth, the blood dripping from her fingers. I smell the gore stuck under her fingernails and the excrement squishing between her toes. And I think to myself, yes, sister, I will remember. I will tell all who will listen about the horrors of war. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Come back too. Up next, by Shali. Did I get that right? Yes? With more Batman.
This one's called The Original. You say I'm strong, like a storm-slaughtered tree, stands battered and bruised but tall. You say I'm brave, like a snow-smothered seed, still alive, defying its pall. You say I'm giving, like the rain-fed river, nourishes and nurtures its lands. You say that I sparkle, like the star-kissed sky, dances over the desert sands. You say I'm kind, like dark depths of the night, enfolds our flaws in its womb. You say I'm sweet, like the blossoming flower, selflessly shares its perfume. You say I'm refreshing, like the dew-drenched dawn, heralds truth for the day to begin. You say I'm warm, like the sun-soaked summer, seeps through the pores of our skin. You say I'm funny, like the fine fluffy cloud, brings laughter with shapes that it makes. You say I'm wise, like the time-tested wind, changes temper with currents it takes. You say I inspire as the sum of these parts. The original never fails to impress. And I smile to myself, smile a small, sad smile. Your delusion has been a success. You will never see I am but an echo inside, trapped in hollow halls of my heart. Never see that I'm broken, so lost to myself, long before it is time to depart. You silence your guilt, like you know who I am, like you never put my soul at stake. A shell shrouded in shadows, then tainted with pain, this original now bleeding to fake. Thank you.
I have to introduce our next reader, is Tanya, and her favorite comic book hero is not Batman, it's Magneto.
Oh yes, young and old version. Okay, meanwhile, this one's for you, Janine, because you happen to be here and I was happening to read it. And anyway, no, it's not a haiku, by the way, for those of you who know me for haiku. It's called Fairy Tales. First, there is an always, then, eventually, a later. After that come the letters, written in French hieroglyphics, all oranges and spindles and rust. The lock can be opened without a key, but you have to know the notes that keep it bound. You have to know the leaves, know when they turn from green to gold to gone. You have to keep count of kittens and kettles. You have to know how not to drown in a well of your own making. Thank you. I'm back. Let's see, who's up next? Got some people who did arrows here, but I think I've got the right order. Sarah Jane Holiday? Is this your first time? Yeah. Woohoo!
I actually also don't read comics enough to know. That's a fine answer. But I'm really excited to read some of my stuff at Soul Foods because I come here all the time to listen to music, and I thought that I would share some of my poetry. So, yeah. So this is called The Blank Slate Revision. The deaf poet misinterprets, counting your snores like a confused lamb. While mystic ideation synthesized through to the tips of your nails, you scrape your slate, observe the clay, realize that John Locke lied to you. We've been sculpting your slate since before you could participate. Yeah, you were born with impressions, but that's not to say that we're not impressed with you now. Holy cow, we tune in from 10 to 2. Our only channel of foreign conviction is you. But now we watch for form. We We want you to let us mold you. We watch for control, smoldered by our synthetic admiration. Achieve these two, and conviction will be ours. Lost will be your mind, the last mind, but we can't mind. It's not too late to break your slate. Let our synthetic admiration compete in your mind's battle of authority and love. Or you could just let love win next to authority. Let authority win next to love. Open up your battle and release this tensious rattle, and now balanced grip your talons into our flesh and return the favor to that confused lamb. Release the trance that had our misguided interpretations rarely uninspired by form and control, because this has now all engulfed our slate, because this is no longer about you. Your slate has been broken, now break mine too. Thank you.
Speaking of haiku, which we weren't, did you know that February is National Haiku Writing Month? Anybody know that? It's the shortest month for the shortest genre of poetry. And if you want some information about it, there's a website, etc. And there are about 800 people who are joining the frenzy on a Facebook page, responding to daily prompts. And today's prompt is pool. Related to haiku is a form called haibun, which is prose sprinkled or ending with a haiku, and this is a haibun of mine, and it's called 35 Cortlands Drive, Watford. And you probably can't tell from my accent, but I'm British, and this is about a place where I used to live in England. A small house at a slow curve in the road, on a slight hill, red brick, a polite garden in the back with roses and a bird bath. Christmas, on a rainy day, 1972. I'm 10 years old, and my uncle has given me a chess set with wooden pieces. Years later, on a trip back to England, I mention this to him, and he says he doesn't remember. This surprises me. I realize I had expected him to remember, wanted him to, but he has forgotten just some gift he gave to a child, a chess set that I still have today, now using it to teach my 4-year-old how to play. In that old house, I had a bedroom upstairs overlooking the garden where I worked on my stamp collection, a hobby I've forgotten now, my dusty albums abandoned in a box somewhere, though I still can't toss an envelope in the trash without tearing off its corner. And so I collect these stamps, habits of memory, probably to be thrown out someday. My son likely won't want them, stamps from Botswana, Iceland, New Zealand, Japan, places I've been as well as those I'll never visit. And so this Christmas, I think of what to get for my son, too young maybe for his own chess set or stamp album. So I'll get him some toy he'll forget in a fortnight, or so it will seem. Or will he? Maybe years from now he'll come to me, his dad, not just his uncle, and ask if I remember that gift, something that meant the world to him. But I will have forgotten, clean forgotten, and my forgetting will hurt my child. My chest tightens. Then slowly I ponder taking another trip to England with my son and reach for a sheet of paper. I write a letter to the strangers who live in that old brick house. I know the address. Talk of snow, the stems of roses recently pruned. Some people call me Captain Haiku, but that comic hasn't been written yet. So I guess my favorite comic book hero is Captain Underpants. Is that a comic book? Our next reader is a fan of Nightcrawler, Taylor Larson.
Once again, I want to thank you all for coming out and making this possible, and also for Mike and Tanya. Thank you guys for hosting. I wrote this quick one off of, well, I don't know, but here it is. Every morning, I wake up with a shining smile, with my human condition feeling it's been a while. So I lean over to kiss my sweet bliss and reminisce in that kiss of bliss and never miss that taste of kiss. Thank you.
Alrighty. And to close us out tonight, unless there's anyone else after this, anyone else? Then we have Jen, whose favorite comic book hero is in fact all of ElfQuest, which is awesome. Thank you.
Hi. Is this your first time? This is my first time. And I accidentally printed it very small. So it'll be a challenge. When a lotus blooms, she brings forth all that she has seen in the underworld. She pulls herself up and up, changing from muck to morning. And when she blooms, there is heaven there waiting to kiss her. Happy kisses with tears of joy and the knowing that all who have ascended know from their memories of the deep darkness beneath us. That which scares, that which taunts, which nourishes those who brave to look upon it, who brave to be caught up in it, to risk the terrible risk of not coming back home. And when it blooms in slow motion, sequentially, many times overlapping, creating petals of motion which caress, coax joy, sing songs unheard, sweeping in freshness from the sweet, sweet world which we live in. This is a short, bigger one called Redwoods. I wait inside the charred hollow of a live redwood playing my drone flute. Raven, darkness, wrapped in secret shroud treeness, I stepped out onto the path, and a woman was weeping, releasing, spiraling upwards. Trance, trees, flute. I could not stop playing. She could not stop the weeping. Tears merge. We open further, slowly, passing each other. Holy blessings, trees, women, standing in sun-splashed miracle of browns and greens and padded footsteps.
Thank you. We've had a lot of first-time readers tonight. I'm curious to know how you heard about Soul Food. Anybody want to volunteer? Those of you who read for the first time tonight.
From the Soul Food website.
Okay. Okay, that's 2 points for the internet.
From somebody who works here.
Great. Good. Well, please come back. It's very nice that you came. We've some of our regulars are not here, so we're glad we had lots of new people too. Our next reading is March 15, and I know who was anybody here last month for Soul Food Poetry Night? There's a good reason for that, because it got canceled. If anybody showed up, I never heard what happened since we had the snow event, as they call it. The two readers last month were Jane Alin and Judith Roche, and they've both been rescheduled for later in the year. Judith will read in November, and Jane will read next month. So March 15, please come back for her. And I'm going blank on her co-reader. So we just set this up, and I'm going blank on her co-readers. It's online. That's what the internet's for. I don't have to remember things. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoyed hearing all your poetry. And once more, thanks to our two featured readers, Janine and Martha. Good night.